our entire goal in doing this today, clearly it wasn't to dress up for you guys. Clearly it wasn't to be like extra, extra cute. She was like, so should I dress? I'm like, girl, put your sweats on because it's real cold. So I'm
like crazy
where
cold
would you
outside.
have to? And we're going to get this done. Hey, good morning. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Chatone and Morganne, Princess of Positivity.
I'm Morgan Bustos.
Yeah, we're back with you. We're real super comfy. This is a chill day. And so it's one of our last days we're getting a chance to be together. So we thought we would, talk about some sensitive things today. And so we're kind of excited to come back and kind of, be super natural, very unscripted. Morgan doesn't really know what we're going to talk about. And she lets me do that. She lets me have leeway in that way.
I love it. I trust her. So
okay, she may not love it, but she does trust me. She does trust me. She does trust me.
I love her too.
Well, actually, last week we were talking about some kind of tough things of, your trip here and working with our mentor and really through the week going through some really tough work, going through a lot of emotional freedom, a lot of tapping, and a lot of release. And we were talking about some of the great things that happened with that and, things that were, how they say how they have those little disclaimers of like, this is not typical, right? In tapping, anything is typical. Anything can happen. That's kind of one of the cool things. And, she lost weight. She lost inches on her body. She slept a whole lot. She, incredible amounts of release took place. And so we were talking about how EFT can do that. It can actually really quickly change things that you couldn't change in the past. One of the things I noticed when we were having our last session, we were talking that there was a lot of, air, there's a lot of space, And so what I want to do today, without telling you in advance, all the things we're going to talk about, because I want you to, these are things that, this is real life. We're here, we did a whole series, a couple weeks ago about joy and how to amp up your joy. And we talked about my book here, just in case you missed the series. We did a whole series on the first key in this book. And a lot of people have been getting the book and it's really effective. So if you're interested in this, I will put in the description box below. But, so there was a lot of joy that took place. It's like so many good things that happened because of the work that you've been doing. But at the same time, triggers still exist. So I wanted to talk today about and talk with you about how triggers take place and how people can start to deal with those, how you've done it. And the fact that sometimes what we do is we don't respect ourselves enough. We forget that the accommodations we need are good enough, that there's nothing wrong with asking for, I'm not talking about help or support, but like asking for what you need. So, some people need milk in their coffee and some people want cream in their coffee and some people would die if it wasn't black. And they would never have a problem with, a person who drinks black coffee isn't taking it with milk. They'd rather have water. They're not doing it, right? You like almond creamer. And today I had to sneak in the chocolate syrup on you because we didn't have enough almond creamer. It's like you like what you like. And there's certain things we allow ourselves to like and do and respect ourselves in that way. The surface stuff. But the things that mean the most, because we're hiding them, we don't allow there to be truth in that way. So we hide all that. And then we're like, and we're going through that. So today, what I thought would be neat is that we could talk a little about some of the things that happened when we were meeting, with our mentor. You mentioned a little bit. And if for those of you who, again, we're not going to go too deep into DV, but we may get into that. So, or other things. So again, sometimes we're going to give you the disclaimer. Morgan's always going to say, protect yourself and be safe. But we're just going to do a blanket disclaimer so she can stay in the moment. If your kids are about, or you perhaps live in an unsafe situation, take the precautions you need. Take a moment, put on your headphones, or bookmark this podcast so you can watch it later. If you've missed some of our series and we talked a lot about, your situation, you're coming up on anniversary dates. Everyone thinks of like anniversary dates as triggers, but can you talk about how that affects you?
So a lot of times in like in a physical way, I'll get extremely I'll just get really lethargic. I'll get super, super tired. My body starts shutting down. Or my brain.
When you say your body's shutting down, what do you mean?
Oh, good question. So I'll sleep a lot.
Mhm.
I'll get extremely like spacey. My head, like I won't be able to
Mm.
retain information very well. I get really, really drowsy, scattered. Like scatterbrained is
Mm.
the best way to put it.
Mhm. And so when that happens, what I mean, obviously I know you have some other accommodations, but the thing about it is that a mom is always working. A
Always.
mom has got to take care. She got couple, 3, 4 kids. Okay, so moms have to work regardless, taking care of your family. And so, how does that intersect so that our audience knows that they're having things like this, especially as we've talked again? We don't celebrate the holidays, but we respect that people go through a lot at this time of year. If you have death anniversaries, if you have birthday anniversaries, if you have wedding anniversaries, um, and this time of year people get together as families and maybe you don't have that anymore. Those kind of anniversary dates, what would you recommend in terms of how people can get through? I mean, obviously we talk about tapping, but what other things?
So I'm always going to go back to journaling.
Mhm.
It really, really helps because it gives you a timeline to focus on and you can look back and reflect on it. So that's really, really helpful. Um, Doing things like we were talking about last week that bring you joy,
Mhm.
those simple little things, it can help ground you in a way where it literally just brings you back to center so you're not so far off left field. And it's being around the people that you really genuinely know, like support you and love you is really, really helpful because we have a really good support group right now. We have a lot of family, that has adopted us in. So being around people that you know are gonna mm, like hold you, hug you, embrace
Embrace
that's the
you,
word we're looking
embrace you.
for.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Is helpful.
So, with that being said, when a person is, or when a woman is having these, and again, especially we talk about in midlife, there's a lot of concentration on younger women and what they're going through, and like not being experienced or doing something for the first time, and things like that. But somehow the content kind of gets a little weary. Like we don't get the content for the midlife woman. Yesterday or 2 days ago on TikTok, I saw someone was saying, "What about? Okay, great, we got the 40-sided TikTok because that's a whole trend. What about the 50-sided TikTok? What about the 60-sided TikTok? Where it's like, what about these older groups? Well, what happens is people forget about that. It's like if you survived through, you must be good.
Mm.
Is that true?
No. I am not okay. We still need direction. We do. We
Not
do.
true. No, I'm saying it's not true. They're really good.
Yeah.
We make it
look good.
good.
Like it's amazing what makeup can do. I told you guys that before. Like on my really, really bad days, I always make sure my hair is on point and my makeup's on, like on perfect. Because if I have to walk by a mirror and see myself and I feel as yucky on the inside as and then look
Yeah.
see that, it makes it 100 times worse. So yeah.
So what about so okay, so we've got a couple of strategies.
Mhm.
We have journaling, we have taking care of yourself, a little bit of self-care, things like resting, being around people that are safe. But now, what about the actual triggers themselves? So, I know this may be a little difficult, so rein it in. But so when we were meeting last week, some things happened that you didn't expect, and or it was a couple weeks ago when we were meeting, and some of the things were you encountered someone who body type was like your ex-husband,
Right.
who was wearing clothes similar to your
Just
ex-husband,
like him.
and some of the environment were triggers for you, and it was completely unexpected, and it was that dichotomy of knowing I'm actually safe, but I'm also dealing with this, which I just have to throw in here. That's exactly what we do in tapping. We say, even though, like that setup station we do on that karate chop point, we say, even though, and then it's like all the negative things that are happening. And then we also still affirm and accept ourselves. And what happens is the brain goes, okay, even though this thing is happening, I'm safe. Even though this thing is happening, I'm okay. Even though this thing is happening. So two things are always coexisting, but we don't always acknowledge them. We don't always allow them to coexist. We're always trying to push something down. We're always trying to push something down. Now, I told her to turn that phone off.
I did. I hit the stop.
No, not to stop. You
And
gotta,
do not disturb.
okay.
Life.
See? We never stop. We never stop. I'm teasing.
Sorry.
Look, we got kids, mine's on, they know where I am, so they can come down if they need me.
Sorry.
So what happens is that when those triggers are happening, that those two things coexisting, but now for you, when it was happening, a lot happened. So you mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. You mentioned about um, this place you went inside
Oh.
and you were actually brought back out. But why don't you just again, why don't you delve into a little bit so that if people have that, they can respect that that's what's actually going on. So what happened?
So basically, what ended up happening is when we were doing the tapping sequence, the the questions that were being asked or the statements that were being made was making my brain go back. I'm going to be 43 in a couple of days. So what, 41 years? 41 years ago. We were talking about something like right here, right now, and it took me back 41 years. So when that was happening, I didn't even realize that I was like following along. I was following the commands, I was going through everything, but I kind of checked out for a second.
Mm.
And so then when I checked out for a second, I was lovingly brought back to center. Like I was in my trauma capsule and then they brought me back. Um, but it was interesting because the flood of emotions
Mm.
that came through, I didn't even understand. I was like, how does this even correlate to anything? But then over the last couple of weeks, now it's all filtering in and starting to make sense.
So let's get a little more clear, because as in clarity. What are the kinds of things that triggered you? Was this just the questions? Like, what are the kinds of things? Because I think sometimes, again, and it could be tangible, like it's happening in your midst, or it could be something you see happening to someone else on television. And I'll just interject really quickly. I think it was after my second time losing a baby, or maybe my third, I could no longer watch the Lifetime network. I was at like Lifetime Network. If you can't find me, I'm upstairs in the bed looking at some Lifetime Network. And after my second or third miscarriage, I could know it didn't matter that the show was not about that. It was too much sadness. It's always sad. There's always trauma. It's like, do they think that women only have trauma? That whole network was a trauma network. Mm-hmm. And so it got to, and then there always someone's losing a kid, and someone's going to court, and someone's getting a divorce. And I was like, I can no longer watch it. And that's when I started watching comedy. I actually don't like comedy. I think it's weird to want to watch TV 30 minutes. Like 30 minutes, I want to watch TV for at least an hour and then be done with it. The 30 minutes, which is actually going like 16 minutes, which they give you all the ads, I'm not interested. Okay. But after that, for the last 20 years, I still watch drama here and there, but I will get into a comedy because even though it wasn't exactly what was happening, the trigger of the sadness, the trigger of the woman's faces, the facial expressions, knowing angst like that triggered me to no end. So
it had like the same emotional signature.
Exactly. So what happens is that sometimes we don't respect that about ourselves, or you're with other people and you're like, oh, well, this is what we're doing. Okay. So then you're just like, oh, all right. And you said that, well, I for one will be in the kitchen. I for one will get a book. I for one will be in the other room, and I'm not, not wanting to socialize or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm just not going to subject myself to something that doesn't make me feel good. And I know those boundaries, and I love and respect myself enough to not do that. I don't love and respect myself not enough to get on here wearing this outfit, because clearly this outfit is absolutely great. But I do love and respect myself.
I love it.
Enough to just be like, I can't do that. So
thank you for giving me the examples of that, because now I know where you're going with that. For example, like the clothing that the person was wearing looked exactly like my husband's. I mean, the white undershirt, red polo, like tan khakis, everything, the body structure, it was crazy. So between that, so I was visually going, subconsciously, I had that in my mind because of it being Thanksgiving week. So the trauma from that, mm-hmm. right? And then seeing somebody that represented exactly that. And then also there was the cameras on the side mm-hmm. of me, because we went there for work originally. Yeah. So there was the cameras on the side. That was a huge trigger, which is actually what brought up my memories
Yeah.
of being sexually molested and assaulted as a little girl. And then from there, like having the door open, I didn't know it was a bathroom. All I knew is like the person's here, there's a door here, there's an open door here, this person's here, camera's here, my back's to a door, which I never do, like ever. And then Chatone was to my right. So there were not knowing who
It's
could have
multiple
been,
triggers.
yeah, who could have been on the other side of that door listening or waiting to join in, right? And then my back to the door, so I couldn't escape or see who's coming in behind me. It was crazy, but then it was interesting because even in those moments when he brought me out of my trauma capsule, like I was looking at the eyes
Mhm.
and the hands and the arms, right? And it actually reminded me of my papi. It reminded me of my dad,
Mhm.
and that instantly made me feel safe.
Right. So 2 things.
So it was
So
weird. I
multiple
was
things.
yeah, extremely triggered, and then immediately felt safe, but then felt uncomfortable.
So what was that feeling like for your body? What was
Scared.
going on? Yeah. So you
Panic.
see, panic, fear. So you've got panic, fear. She was also having pain because we were doing certain tapping transformations around pain.
Mhm.
And then you were also having, and it's so interesting, you keep saying the cameras, and there was only one. There was lights.
That's what yeah.
I know, but I'm just saying. So what happens is you may tell somebody this, and because they don't get you or because they're not paying attention, then they will judge what you said. Listen, they will judge what you said and call you crazy. Oh, girl, it was only one camera. Like, what are you
Mhm.
talking about? Like, those were lights. Those are not your people.
Huh.
Those are not your people. One of the reasons why we're doing tapping circles, we are your people.
Mhm.
You need space to allow the release. You need space that is safe
Mhm.
so that you're able to say what needs to be said so that you can let it go.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you'll say it to the wrong person, and not only will they not understand, so that's the first assault on your character.
Right.
The second thing they'll say, that didn't even happen, so then they deny that it happened. All of those things look like the abuse you
'Cause you-
experienced in the beginning.
Because then you're questioning your own reality all over again. It feels like being gaslit
Gaslit, yeah.
all this all over again.
Yeah. So when and this is really important that I don't know if you remember this part, but there was something in particular that we did and that we do when we're working with women specifically, and we really only work with women. I'm sorry, guys, that are in the midst of something that's really heavy. And because we've been taught as women to be quiet, we've been taught to not speak up. And whether you're a feminist or not, or whatever, teaching a little girl that she can't talk or speak up is wrong, because she's a person and we're actually really all created equal. So if our boys can talk, our girls can talk too, and vice versa, right? So do you remember what he told you?
Are you talking about when he took me back in time?
No. So what happened was, and this is interesting. So I was there as a bystander and taking notes, right? So, you know, she didn't know she was going to be a test subject, but because she has a tremendous amount of trauma that she's worked through, and that Morgan has, I mean, it's like shackles from 7 years or almost 8 years now since we met. One of the things that's so important, and again, one of the reasons why we invite you to work with us or work with someone, is that it's giving voice. So he started asking her the questions, right? Like, are you, like, tell me what you're feeling. Again, allowing her to give voice. And what happens is when you're able to give voice to fear, to trauma, to anxiety, to dislike, to, your boundaries, what happens is automatically by giving voice, it knocks it down. I don't know if you remember that. It was like 10 minutes where he described this thing and you were crying. Like, you were because you were releasing and releasing and releasing. And every few minutes you were getting better. Like you were healing. But it was fascinating to me because one of the things I know, it's like the things that we just do instinctively. I've been a coach a long time, so those are the things I do instinctively. I don't necessarily think about them, but being able to say, you being able to say, it's that door, and it's locked, and it's that camera, and it's this door, and it's your clothes. it is hard to tell someone you're the trigger.
Mm,
We won't do it.
that's true.
We won't do
Because
it.
we don't want to offend the other person or make
Right.
them feel like they're the issue or we're
And you
scared
told
of
him that
them.
on multiple levels.
Really?
Yeah, he's a great guy. She did it on multiple levels. Here's the thing. When we enable ourselves the strength to describe, discuss, uncover, discover, you know, eventually release comes.
Mhm.
So I think that, kind of watching that was pretty fascinating. When you look at women who have, and I know you've worked with a few women, especially, or things like um, being cheated on.
Mhm.
That's a big one, right? Um, what are some of the triggers around that end up being solidified when you've gone through that experience?
The phone. The phone is a huge issue. Um, my locations being on, like having to have my locations on. So even to this day, like I think you and one other person, well, my kids, like only have my locations because it's fear. It makes me fearful. Um, Text messages just automatically because you're constantly questioning, who's on the other end of the line, even though I'm not even that kind of girl, like at all. So
Yeah.
things like that. If a person's gone too long without checking in, then all of a sudden
Mhm.
I'm like, wait a second, what's going on? You're not harassing me. So now what's going on? I'm trying to figure out if I have to pre plan for something.
And that could be for whether it has nothing to do with it being a romantic relationship.
Mhm.
So then you could be out there with a friend or with your kid or something like that, and you really it turns on the trigger, it turns it on and turns it up, and then you've created chaos.
This is a good one. Okay, so this one really hit home the other day. So when a person calls me and is like, "Hey, I just wanted to check on you, see what you're doing, da 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 da. Where are you? Like, what's going on?" Not in a bad way, but like,
Yeah,
are you doing okay?
that's too much.
And then, but this is the thing: they were genuinely checking on me to make sure I was all right, but then they disappeared and didn't answer my messages for like a couple of hours. So then that made me like go back and start thinking, okay, wait, so what are you doing? Did you do this to make sure that I was preoccupied? Like you gave me my crumbs kind of thing. And so that I'm not bothering you. And then when I reached out, you're not answering. Just like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's a lot.
It's crazy.
It's a lot of overthinking. It's a lot of um and when I say overthinking, it's not a judgment, it's just a lot of overthinking. It's a lot of thinking. And all of that hypervigilance comes from trauma. I love that hypervigilance. And, again, you revealed, sexual trauma as a child. Um, you've had a lot of family drama. On one of our podcasts, you revealed being hungry as a child, and that your ex husband was also hungry as a child. That changes who you are. When you don't have your immediate needs met, it changes who you are. Um, so now, fast forward to you've done a lot of work. You're going to continue to do work, right? Which is good. None of us are done. We're imperfect. We're in this crazy world, and we're not done yet. We're definitely not done yet. However, you can get to a point where at least you can function pretty well, and you can feel a measure of joy. And specifically, what we were talking about before is teach our girls. Like I have a big thing about teaching our kids way back in the day when live stream was new.
Mhm.
Something like a rap don't way back in the day when live stream was new. Like it was new. Like nobody did it. There was only Periscope. And if anyone remembers Blab, you were old school. You don't know about that. You don't know about that. You don't know about Blab, baby. It was only out for about 2 months and it was defunct. But back in the day when Periscope was the only live streaming platform, and it was owned by Twitter, before Facebook Live, before Instagram Live, before TikTok was born. I
Uh-huh.
mean, when Snapchat was new, okay, like back in the day, I used to go live on Friday nights with something called the Friday Night Family Scope. And that was a time that I just focused with moms and dads on how they can reconnect with their children over the weekend. And it wasn't about going to their football game and their soccer game and sitting sideline and, cheering for them. It was about knocking on their bedroom door, interrupting the game, taking the Roblox and throwing them across the room. I mean, it was about reconnecting. Because what ends up happening is if you've been triggered in little ways all week, you want to go into your corner and regroup, because sometimes being a good mom is just not yelling. Sometimes being a good dad is just not hitting for that day. It's unfortunate. They deserve more, but sometimes that's all we've got. So when you get a safe space, it does a lot for a person. So with you having triggers with the phone, with text messaging, with, checking in, which is really the only way we communicate right now, that's challenging.
Mhm. It really, really is. So it's learning how to just shift and pivot with that, learning how to adjust. And when it comes up more so, literally having to tell myself, like, they're doing this out of love. They're doing this from a good place. It's not to hurt or manipulate or control you or put you in a situation you can't get yourself out of. It is literally to help you know that you guys
Yeah,
care.
it's just information.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
it.
information. So one of the things that we like to do is we sometimes we get into all the details. I mean, I can tell you right now, she's got a notebook, she's got notes, and I told her we're not doing any of that. We're going to be unscripted. We're just going to talk, um, because there's a wealth of information based on her experience. There's a wealth of information based on her education, and one of the things that we like to share is us. Like it's just us. Like I could teach you all day. I could talk on a live stream for about 2, 3 hours, but it's not about that. It's about information that you guys can actually understand, and it's a conversation with you. You're my home. It's amazing. So I want to kind of, I'm leave it open. What else would you like to share based on your healing journey? And we're always going to come back to this when you have been a part of the trauma you've been, and you're about to hit a really big trigger date. Um, what do you think, if anyone else has a similar experience, what do you want to tell them?
It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be sad, angry, happy, mad, whatever emotion comes over your soul, it's okay. There's like no judgment attached to that. Because earlier, when Chatone was talking about how we do put ourselves in situations where we don't even feel like we can stand up for ourselves,
Mhm.
we judge ourselves like really badly, like
Yeah.
subconsciously and consciously, we judge ourselves really badly. So, giving yourself grace to know that it's okay to heal, and healing shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt. And that's what I love about this whole process is the EFT makes it so it's not like it's not re-traumatizing me.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to navigate through it. It's soft and gentle,
Well,
you know.
it could if you don't have support. It could if you don't have support, because it works.
Mhm.
And so if you don't have support, it could be, it's like when my husband, every time he comes home from the gym, or he's been doing something, and then I see him doing a bunch of stretches. I'm like, bro, can we put some ice pack on that first? Or can we put some warmth on that first? Can we elevate that?
Mhm.
What is it? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. Can we do any of the rice method right now?
Oh,
Because it doesn't happen. It's like, I'm just going to stretch. And sometimes what happens with EFT is like it'll stretch you,
stretch.
and then
Yeah.
so having someone to kind of bring you back out and make sure that you know that right now I can take this piece where I am, and I can put it on the shelf if I want
Yeah.
to. I can take this and put it in a box, and I can come back to
Mhm.
this later. I think that's really important. And when you mentioned the emotions are good. We're made of them.
Yeah.
So we don't have to judge them, but knowing who to talk to so that it's safe for us,
Mm.
it's safe for you.
Because we live in a judgy world. Everybody has an
Yeah.
opinion about something and everything. So and it doesn't have to be a lot of people. Like find your one or two people that are your solids and go to them. And then go to the people that are your solids who are going to encourage you in your wins and in your lows.
Yeah.
Right. Because there are some of those people that you can only go to and talk to them when you're not doing good,
Yeah.
because then it makes
Yeah.
them feel like, oh, hey, I'm important,
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then you have the people that are there for everything, like
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. There's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope on the other side of this. It's scary. It's chaos at times, but you can turn it into something that's a pleasurable experience. And what I mean by pleasurable is I'm not back. there? Like what can I glean from this right here, right now? What can I appreciate about this moment in time right here, right now? I'm safe. I'm warm. I'm happy. I'm in a I'm in the loving environment. There's always something, no matter what's going on inside your head or around you, that you can like center yourself with and just be grateful for the moment, because you have so much love and support around you.
Yeah. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the love and support, then connect with us, because
Yes.
one of the things that I don't ever want to gaslight other people. Like, you got love and support. You may not.
Mhm.
You may not have that. But especially going into, the end of a year, it's it's pretty dope if you have something to look forward to. Because that's what people always look forward to something, look forward to something. But in reality, if you're not feeling that way, um, tapping helps, talking helps, reaching out helps. And it may not be us, it may be somebody else, but don't exist alone.
Mhm.
One of the things that I learned in just closing that I watched you do last week was you did kind of like retract and recoil, because we have muscle memory in our spirit as well. So we have muscle memory. Like, I haven't worked out in a little bit, right? Because my eye was messed up and I couldn't have any pressure in my head. Um, but when I go back to working out next week, because I'm setting myself free and I'm working out next week, um, the thing about it is that there's muscle memory. So the body is like, oh, well, the emotions are the same way, negative and positive. So, especially negative. So they go quickly back to where they were. And that's how the triggers work. It's like you haven't seen your husband. And
So it'll be 3 years ago in January he died, but like in his physical
right,
presence, 5 years.
right, right.
5 years.
And yet seeing that outfit. So respect your triggers. One of the things, the reason why we have this book, we also have another journal as well. We'll be showing in the next, well, by now you've seen it, seen this, you may have seen them already, so that you can write those things down, so that you can write those triggers down, so you can write those feelings down. Like, this feels a little funny. And then we can help you when you're in our circles work through those together. And then we get the borrowing benefits of tapping, where everyone taps along, and it really helps you, whatever your situation is or not, because I don't have a DB situation. I got this long time lover husband situation here, about a million years since I'm 14, right? But when I tap along with her, I release other things. So it's not, doesn't have to be the same experience, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So you can always benefit from it.
Yeah, let's do, I don't have any tapping prepared for us, but let's do some breathing, right? We're going to end with a little breathing, because we want to send you off into an amazing Monday.
Yes.
So why don't you give us some breaths?
All right, sweetheart. We are going to take some deep breaths in as much as you can, and then we are going to blow it out and completely out. And you're going to do a circle with your mouth like you're drinking out of a straw or blowing out of a straw, and completely release it. Okay? You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we're going to come breathe in and out. And then in and out. One more, in and out. And you can just take a second and sit there if that's what you need. Your body will tell you when it's okay to open your eyes. It'll tell you if you need to stretch, if you need to shake it off a little bit. It'll tell you what you need to do, so that you know that you're in a safe place.
And you can get, one of the things you always have your breath, and so come back to it. We're going to talk a little bit later, and then as the weeks go by, about grounding and some other things you can do to bring yourself back. Little tiny things, just like you can be triggered to the negative in ways that happen like that, there's ways to do the opposite as well. There's ways to bring you into immediate joy, immediate relaxation, immediate self-care. Teeny tiny steps. Some involve tapping, some involve other things. And so we're going to be talking about that as well. All right, we're out.
All right. Love you guys.
Have a great Monday. Take good care.
Bye.
Bye.